She, hear that? It's the hush right before a radio squawk and nothing at all. Somewhere above the Atlantic, 5 Avengers slice through cloud layers like silver daggers. Crewmen staring at compasses that spin as if the Earth forgot which way to point. Welcome aboard Flight 19. Keep your seatbelts fastened. Our in-flight entertainment is a vanishing act that still bills itself 50+ years later. If drowsiness creeps in, let the ocean's hush rock you. But remember, not off in these coordinates. Might slip into your dreams and never report back. December 5th, 1945. Fort Lauderdale's air smells of kerosene and post-war optimism. Lieutenant Charles Taylor leads 4 trainee crews on Navigation Problem No. 1, a routine triangle to Great Stirrup Cay, then north to open sea, then home. 3 hours, kiss the runway, beer o'clock. But routine in the Bermuda Triangle is like tossing dice and hurricane statistics still apply. They're just screaming. A smur moment. Imagine propellers drumming a 600 horsepower lullaby. Cabin rivets hum, salt mist kisses plexiglass. Below, the sea flexes, a pane of glass that forgot whether it's meant for reflections or swallowing secrets whole. Radio chatter is crisp, climbed to 2,000 feet. Heading 091, pen scratch logbooks, sun glints off aluminum. Comforting normalcy until 1540 hours. Everything looks strange, even the ocean, Taylor transmits. We are entering white water, nothing seems right. Compasses spin like ballerinas on espresso. Trainees wait for correction that never arrives. Coordinates bleed off the map. In classroom drills, you trust the gauge. In the triangle, the gauge starts flirting with existentialism. Cue the first theory, magnetic declination. The triangle hugs one of the few places where true north and magnetic north can tango without awkward stepping. Forget to apply a 5-degree correction, and you end up saluting Puerto Rico instead of Florida. Skeptics shrug pilots, no declination, like bartenders, no hangovers. But maybe Taylor's compass didn't just drift. Maybe it foxtrotted into chaos, spinning 360 like a carnival ride while altimeters giggled along. Humor breather, imagine the Navy debrief room. Clipboard officer asks, LT, Taylor, why did you ignore all radio beacons? Taylor would love to answer, but is currently a mystery chapter. The Navy writes the report anyway, 'cause unknown. Translation, our paperwork is as lost as the planes. Back in the air, fuel gauges tick toward empty. Radio towers catch fragments. Both my compasses are out. I'm sure I'm over the keys, but I don't know how far down. Listeners later describe the transmissions as calm but fraying, like a shoelace one tug from unraveling. Rescue PBM 5 Mariner 592 takes off at 1927 to find Flight 19. 20 minutes later, it too vanishes, witnessed exploding by the SS Gaines Mills. Double act triangle style. Let's roll back and whisper through cockpit logs. Earlier that year, Taylor got lost over Texas. Misnavigated to Fort Myers. Solid pilot, but rumors suggest a directional allergy. Critics claim human error. Romantics prefer sea monsters. In 1991, explorers raised a TBM Avenger off Florida only to ID it as a training flight from 1943. The ocean plays shell game. Pick a wreck, any wreck, odds are it's not yours. Theory 2, methane hydrates. A bubbly burp from ocean floor lowers water density. Ships lose buoyancy, planes splash into foaming quicksand. Sounds far-fetched until you watch lab footage of model vessels dropping like stones in soda. But Flight 19 was airborne unless methane also vents into atmosphere, choking engines. Could be. Evidence slim. Still a nice fizz for documentary voiceovers. Humor break. Tabloids once headlined Portal Swallows Navy. Imagine HR explaining Portal insurance premiums. Good news, dental coverage. Bad news, interdimensional deductible. Bring in weather. December fronts brew optical illusions called false horizons, flattening sky and sea into blue soup. Combine downdrafts, microbursts, and a tired flight leader nursing a New Year's Eve hangover, and you have a recipe Gordon Ramsay would label bloody catastrophic. We'll deep dive meteorology in episode 4, but spoiler, nature is the Triangle's favorite co-author. Fuel low, Taylor orders due west if they were really east of Florida. That works. They weren't. At 20:04, last fate plea, all planes close up tight. We're not certain of position. Holding 270, and then static like someone tore the page mid-sentence. The Navy's search spans 250,000 square miles over 5 days, 300 aircraft, 21 vessels, no debris, no oil slick. Families receive foreign letters and folded flags. Newspapers smell copy gold. Sees hoodoo still claims lives. Thus, a legend doubles down. 1 squadron lost is tragedy. 2 is marketing. Soft signal, so ends our first waypoint. Compasses confounded, radios fading, and 5 torpedo bombers somewhere between rumor and reef. Sleep lightly. The Triangle is patient, and chronology is its favorite parlor trick. Skip episode 2, and your GPS might wake up speaking Atlantean. Until then, keep your bearings and maybe a backup compass that doesn't believe in ghosts. Episode 2, The Chronology of Loss. Lean closer and imagine a maritime ledger so water-stained the ink runs like tidal lines. Flip any page and a vessel blinks out. Date, tonnage, crew count, and then a blank where the arrival port should be. Tonight we ride the calendar like a roller coaster, tick marking a who's woe of vanishings that turned one corner of the Atlantic into every novelist's favorite scapegoat. First entry, September 20th, 1800. The USS Pickering, a topsail schooner hauling dispatches between Guadeloupe and Delaware, slides off the map with 90 souls. No SOS, only the hurricane season's grin stretching ear to ear. The Navy chalks it to weather, but folklore insists the Triangle debuted with a polite throat clearing. Notice me. Jump to 1814. HMS Rosalie found drifting. Sails set, coffee still warm. Crew? Absent. Cargo? Untouched. Local papers blame pirates too tidy for their own branding. Tour guides decades later sell tickets to the ghost ship dinner cruise, lukewarm coffee included. Fast forward a century. March 4th, 1918. USS Cyclops, a 5'4", 2-foot colossus, steams from Barbados toward Baltimore with 10,000 tons of manganese ore and nearly 310 crew. Somewhere north of St. Thomas, she whispers goodbye. Not a bolt floats back. Even the German Navy, everyone's convenient WI villain, denies involvement. The Navy's verdict: we simply do not know. In bureaucraties, that's an existential crisis. 1945 we covered last night, but 1948 demanded an encore. January 30th, 1948. British South American Airways star Tiger departs the Azores bound for Bermuda with 31 on board. Weather: mild grumbles, nothing dramatic. ETA, Guyana stead. Only radio static greets the tower. Ave search planes grid the Atlantic. They find clouds shaped suspiciously like planes, but no metal. BSS chairman tells it a puzzling matter. Understatement of the decade. Humor breather. Somewhere in Bermuda Customs, a clerk files Star Tiger as late. After a week, he stamps very late. 2 months in, he doodles a tiger with wings and retires. December 28th, 1948. DC-3 flight NC-16002 leaves San Juan for Miami with 32 passengers, 2 crew, and a cargo manifest lighter than an airline sandwich. 30 minutes out, Captain Robert L. Lindquist radios, all's well, then nothing. Coast Guard spends $100,000 in kerosene and caffeine, combing 30,000 square miles. Result, zilch. The Civil Aeronautics Board theorizes water and fuel lines, but families eye the map and gulp. A fortnight later, January 17th, 1949 S. Esther Rio lifts from Bermuda toward Kingston, Jamaica. Mid-flight, the captain radios crystal clear updates, even compliments air traffic control on signal strength. Last words, unchanging frequency now. New frequency picks up only sky. To be say, stars, gone in 12 months. Tabloids crown the Triangle, the new Hollywood. October 30th, 1954. U.S. Navy super constellation disappears en route to the Azores. 42 passengers, crew, and an extra pinch of Cold War tension vanish. Naval inquiry suggests catastrophic structural failure. Conspiracy theorists counter with skyquakes, spaceships, or Atlantis 2.0 needing fresh recruitment. September 26, 1955 brings the yacht Connemara 4, found adrift off Bermuda. Sails reefed tidily, kitchen tidy, logbook ends mid-sentence. Maritime investigators shrug so hard their epaulets creak. Newspapers coin the Mary Celeste of the Caribbean because branding never sleeps. Come 1963, the Marine Sulphur Queen, a 3-foot tanker laden with molten sulfur, radios routine position 140 miles west of Key West. 48 hours later, Coast Guard discovers an oil slick, a life vest, and existential dread. NTSB cites structural weakness. The Triangle winks. Humor snapshot. A chem student hears molten sulfur tanker disappears and quips, "Well, hell is traditionally sulfurous." The joke bombs at the memorial service, but gets him a podcast later. December 22nd, 1967. Cabin cruiser Witchcraft departs Miami with Captain Dan Barak and priest friend Father Patrick Horgan to admire Christmas lights. Less than a mile offshore, Barak radios that his hull hit something, requests a tow, but reassures no immediate danger. Coast Guard arrives 19 minutes later to find an empty ocean glittering with tinsel-reflected city lights. The tow rope, life jackets, even the priest's spare color gone. That close to shore, mystery achieves mic drop. Jump to the jet age. February 9th, 1969. A pair of UK Royal Air Force Phantom jets vanish from radar during exercise. 50 miles from Bermuda, weather benign. Search teams find nothing but a floating seat cushion, possibly from an unrelated beach party. Air Force declares lost without trace, a phrase the Triangle prints on t-shirts. 1971 gives us a trio: the cargo ship Anita, the freighter Dover, and a twin-engine Beechcraft. Each files routine routes, each erased. Insurance actuaries develop migraines aligning payout spreadsheets with Atlantic coordinates. March 4th, 1986. Space Shuttle Challenger debris still haunts headlines when cargo vessel Pride of Baltimore disappears 240 miles north of Puerto Rico. A sudden microburst is blamed. Survivors? None. The 20th century keeps padding the ledger. Last major headliner, June 20th, 2005. Piper PA-23 disappears with pilot and daughter en route from Treasure Cay to Fort Pierce. GPS age, satellite triangulation, yet searchers retrieve no debris. Eva quietly files it. By now, missing light planes are statistical noise. Families don't feel statistical. Trend audit, early years skew toward cargo ships. Mid-century loves passenger aircraft. Late century shifts to private craft. The common denominators? Unreliable weather forecasting, overloaded manifests, and the Atlantic's flair for drama. Humor breather 2. Data analysts propose renaming the Triangle area with unfortunate safety culture. PR teams beg to differ. Horror movie directors buy the rights. Skeptics wave Lloyd's of London stats. Permal losses no higher than other busy seas. Counter-arguers cite the disproportionate media echo. Reality sits somewhere offshore, sipping saltwater cocktails. Soft Signoff. Thus ends our night's inventory of the missing names etched in salt. Coordinates memorized by grieving maps. Dream lightly. Chronology may be orderly, but the triangle prefers improvisation. Skip episode 3 and your compass app might start speaking in riddles. Until then, stay buoyant and double-net that lifeline to reality. This voyage is only halfway charted. Episode 3, Compass Gone Crazy. Pause here, right on the deck rail, and stare at that innocent compass card. See the needle? Calm, reliable, stoic North Pointer. Now imagine it pivoting like a carnival ride, spinning until east is west and true is false. That's the Bermuda Triangle's favorite party trick. And tonight we unravel the magnets, myths, and mild panic attacks behind it. To understand the fuss, cue 2 norths. True north, the axis around which the globe pirouettes. And magnetic north, a restless Arctic nomad currently trekking toward Siberia at 30-odd miles per year. Most of Earth maps, ship logs, and nervous cadets account for the offset declination. But inside the triangle sits the Agonic line, a slender zone where compass needles point true. Sailors crossing that invisible ribbon must adjust from subtract 5 degrees west to subtract nothing, faster than a quartermaster can say, "Where's my rum?" Botch the math at dusk, and Florida turns into open ocean quicker than you can whistle. Anchors away. Myth 1. The triangle possesses a magnetic vortex so strong it yanks aircraft gauges into interpretive dance. Reality. Field intensity in that region is average about 48,000 nanoteslas, give or take a coffee break. Compare that with Hudson Bay's 60,000 plus nanoteslas. If magnetism alone caused disappearances, Canada would be an unmarked graveyard of Cessnas. Yet pilots seldom report the Yukon hexagon. But anomalies do lurk. Iron-rich undersea mountains create local distortions, tiny kinks that bend lines of flux like heat mirage over asphalt. A 5 deviation at 500 knots translates to a miss of 40 nautical miles in under 15 minutes. Add storm clouds blotting stars, and your Boeing is playing Marco Polo with Miami at Tahiti. Comic breather. In the 1960s, a yacht club printed t-shirts. It's not a wrong turn, it's spontaneous sightseeing. Sales spiked every regatta, so did calls for towboats. And to the Fluxgate compass, darling of mid-20th century cockpits. 2 coils surround a ferromagnetic core, sensing field direction via voltage blips. Marvelously precise unless lightning ionizes the air. Waves slap the hull at rude angles. Or someone mounts the unit too close to a stereo speaker blasting Elvis. Investigators have found compass roses, smeared by onboard wiring leaks. Think of a magnet slowly stroking the compass like a mischievous cat until the reading purrs in the wrong azimuth. Human error overlaps the magnetic plot twist. The U.S. Air Force, as 1947 manual warned aviators, done to trust a needle during high bank turns at low latitude. Precession will misbehave. Translation, bank hard near the equator and your compass sulks. The triangle spans 25N to 30N close enough for the tantrum to begin. Let's roll tape on a classic. 1950 freighter Cess Sundra en route Cape Henry to Puerto Rico. Radios that compasses reverse polarity after a lightning strike. Crew swaps to celestial nav. Clouds laugh, closing ranks. The ship drifts south 300 miles off course, wanders through a reef, and becomes scrap metal for scuba tourists. Official report cites electrical storm anomalous magnetism. Unofficially, sailors blame Poseidon's prank streak. Compounding confusion, variation maps printed on charts lag behind magnetic north's wandering. By the time a 1970 chart reached the helm, the line of zero declination had drifted 20 miles. Multiply across thousands of captains and decades, and you get a cartographic version of You Had One Job. Humor snapshot. A Floridian novelty shop sells souvenir compasses pre-calibrated to always point at the cash register. Tourists giggle, historians wince. Now, about gyro compasses, the spin is saviors immune to magnets. Powered by inertia, they lock to true north. But they're divas. Cut the power, lose lubrication, or toss the ship in heavy seas, and gyros tumble like drunk ballerinas. 1963's Sulphur Queen reportedly had a gyro offline for maintenance. Crew fell back to a twitchy magnetic compass while hauling molten cargo sloshing like lava. Not ideal. Satellite GPS solved everything until it didn't. July 2013, a Raytheon Hawker 800 vanished from radar between Puerto Plata and Fort Lauderdale. Preliminary data logged intermittent GPS dropout. Solar storm index that night. KP6, ample to jitter ionospheric signals. In the dark, pilots switched to backup compass. Confusion ensued. Wreckage remains elusive. Yes, space weather steers this drama. Coronal mass ejections stretch magnetic field lines, generating geomagnetic storms that tweak declination several degrees in minutes. Not enough to crash modern jets by itself, but enough to transform routine course corrections into wild goose chases if layered atop cloud decks and cockpit fatigue. Comic Detour 2. During a 2001 geomagnetic hiccup, a cruise director blamed GPS loss on mermaids messing with satellites. Passengers bought themed cocktails. The bar rebranded as the Magnetic Mermaid for the season. Of course, conspiracies swirl thicker than Gulf Stream humidity. Some claim an Atlantean crystal still pulses beneath the Sargasso, emitting failed inversions. Others cite U.S. Navy Project Magnet flights in the 50s, testing secret wave disruptors. FOI documents show magnetometer surveys, mostly dull numbers, but dullness never sold paperback thrillers. Let's check math. A plane at 10,000 feet traveling 180 knots veers 3 off true for 30 minutes equals 6 nautical miles off path. If fuel margins are slim and weather pushes further, you're flirting with adrift and asking tower to relay prayers. Throw in Gulf Stream currents dragging wreckage northeast at 3 knots, and search grids multiply like rabbits. Soft sig off, so next time your phone's map spins at the slightest swivel, grant it mercy. Compasses have trust issues stretching back centuries, and the Bermuda Triangle is a couple's therapy session for navigation. Glide to sleep calibrating your inner gyro. Skip episode 4 and thunderstorms might rewrite your dream coordinates. Till then, keep a magnet handy and maybe unplug that speaker near the flux gate. Episode 4, Weather's Wildcard. Hold on to your hat better yet. Tie it down with 3 reef knots and an oath to Neptune. Tonight the sky decides to improvise. The sea volunteers for percussion. And any ship or plane caught in between gets front row seats to nature's unscripted jazz. Welcome to the Bermuda Triangle's meteorological funhouse, where clouds build trapdoors and waves audition for monster roles. First, picture a patch of ocean warm as bathwater, upwards of 29 degrees Celsius most summers, lying smack under an accelerated branch of the Gulf Stream. Hot water evaporates, air rises, and what meteorologists politely call convective energy, we might dub the atmosphere as triple espresso. Add upper-level wind shear, and you've built a conveyor belt for thunderstorms that bulk up quicker than a gym influencer on sponsorship day. Enter the microburst. Imagine a thundercloud hoarding cold air until it can't stand the weight, then drop-kicking a column of wind earthward at 100 miles per hour. When that downdraft smacks the ocean, waves fan out in radial chaos, slapping hulls from impossible angles. Pilots fear microbursts like cats fear vacuum cleaners. The sudden downward punch can rip 1,000 feet of altitude before coffee hits the throttle quadrant. Example roll call. Eastern Airlines Flight 66, 1975. Touchdown short of JFK during a microburst after crossing the triangle earlier that day. Proof the storm's handshake can linger. Or the SS Marine Electric, 1983, sunk off the Virginia Capes. Investigators traced its final hours through microburst-driven rogue seas tall enough to moonlight as small office buildings. Nobody upstages rogue waves, though. Long considered maritime folklore, They're now satellite-verified beasts topping 25 meters walls of water born from constructive interference, opposing currents, and maybe a sprinkling of oceanic mischief. The Gulf Stream meets trade wind swell right in triangle territory, turning waves into math problems that hate you. Humor moment. Naval tradition claims the first person to spot a rogue wave gets naming rights. The rest just get soaked. Somewhere there's a breaker called Ensign O'Malley's Regret. Take the SS Cyclops again. If a 30 meters rogue wave smacks broadside while manganese ore shifts in its holds, capsize can occur in under a minute. Survivors? 0. Witnesses? Also 0. Rogue waves leave only rumors and paperwork. Let's tilt skyward. Tropical cyclones, hurricanes, if you're on first name basis, incubate here like spicy soup. Even off-season, subtropical storms flash form in 24 hours, outrunning weather bulletins. In 2007, subtropical storm Andrea popped up off Florida in early May, surprising yacht captains who thought they had weeks before hurricane season's curtain rise. Rapid intensification is the buzzkill. Caesar-faced tongue feed energy faster than forecasters can tweet updates. A storm rated just windy at breakfast can slap on Category 2 specs by dinner. Ships relying on noon position forecasts discover noon is ancient history by 17 o'clock. Comic aside, in 1969, a freighter radioed, "Skies clear, barometer steady," then signed off. 8 hours later, Hurricane Lori materialized like an uninvited ant at brunch. The captain as weather report became a cautionary meme in maritime academies. Never trust a calm ocean, it might be loading. Waterspouts add style points. Picture a liquid tornado pirouetting down from Cumulus Couture, slurping seawater like a supersized straw. Airplanes can dodge them. Boats sometimes can't. A 1977 Coast Guard memo logs a shrimp trawler lifted 6 feet, spun 180, and set down -2 deck chairs in all dignity. Now traducers blame electromagnetic storms. Science translation, lightning storms injecting static into radio bands. During heavy convection, VHF goes fritzy as popcorn. HF bounces off ionosphere like a faulty mirror, and radar blossoms with purple splotches worthy of modern art. Pilots sometimes fly blind for 5-minute stretches that feel like 5 eternal questions. Solar storms pile on the chaos. When charged particles slam Earth's magnetosphere, they turbocharge equatorial electrojets, shifting ionospheric layers. GPS signals gallop off course. HF communications drop out. On Halloween 2003, KP index hit 9. Airlines rerouted polar flights, but small craft in the Triangle had no such warnings. One Cessna 210 vanished en route to Nassau filed under lost and marginal VFR, but solar data winks suggestively in the margin. Humor snapshot 2. A Bahamas ferry once told passengers the weird green glow on horizon was phosphorescent fish. It was, in fact, St. Elmo's fire dancing on mast tips during an electrical storm. Half the tourists ordered glow-in-the-dark cocktails. The crew ordered fresh underwear. Multi-factor stew. Start with latent heat, stir in Gulf Stream. Season with African dust plumes carrying condensation nuclei. Garnish with winds here microbursts. Cook until your whitecaps look like rabbit meringue. Serve with a side of missing persons reports. Forensics struggle because weather erases its own fingerprints. A rogue wave leaves no skid marks, a microburst, no crime scene tape. Investigators pore over barograph rolls, satellite loops, and survivor anecdotes delivered between sips of climate guilt. Even modern black boxes sometimes record nothing but a shriek of wind, then silence punctuated by seawater gurgle. Soft sign-off, so next time your weather app flashes chance of thunderstorms, picture a microburst drop-kicking your umbrella while a rogue wave eyes the boardwalk funnel cake stand. Drift to sleep under a quilt of communal Nimbus trivia, but skip episode 5 and pilot logbooks, might start narrating your dreams in worried Morse code. Until then, keep an ear on the forecast, and a sturdy hat strap handy nature's improv set never closes. Episode 5, Echoes in the Dark. Settle in, hush your breath, and listen. Before melody begins, there's always a heartbeat of silence thick enough to bite. Then tap. Tap someone's thumb to a lute string. A rush of anticipation wiggles. Through woolen bed covers, and a castle night lurches from quiet to quite interesting. Tonight we explore medieval acoustics, the lullabies, gossip leaks, and impromptu percussion that filled bedchambers when stone walls couldn't keep secrets but tried really hard. You might think stonework guarantees privacy. Think again. Sound. Ricochets off vaults like marbles in a bucket. A whispered endearment in one turret can ride a draft straight into the buttery. That's why most court musicians doubled as strategic noise cancellation devices. Hire a harpist, drown whispers in arpeggios, and hope the minstrel is too loyal or too paid to transpose your secrets into the morning's ballad. Let's begin with bedtime. Playlists. Noble nurseries rang with plain-song lullabies, half hymn, half hush dash, no dash, or dash to dash, nanny dash quits. Outside, the town watch bawled curfew in a key best described as menacing rooster. Inside, lords preferred softer sets, viol drones, sultry chimes, recorders pitching woo and reedy whimpers. Each instrument had a superpower. Harp strings could smother corridor echoes, while the viol's nasal hum mass mattress squeaks remarkably well early medieval Foley art. But what if you lacked musicians on retainer? DIY solutions flourished. Tapestries depicting battles doubled as sound baffles. Rush mats underfoot dulled footsteps. Heavy curtains over doors choked corridors' gossip currents. Some households even dangled leather-wrapped wooden panels proto-acoustic. Tiles above beds to trap spicy pillow talk. Were they effective? Let's just say bards still earn money, writing songs about what happened underneath. Whispers carried farther than anyone liked. Hence the invention of code phrases. Hess, the cook tasted the custard, could mean, is the hallway clear? Meanwhile, the moon is bold tonight, warned that the sentry on the rampart was nosy. Courtiers practice ventriloquism, throwing sentences sideways so suspicious ears trace the wrong angle. If you overheard, the olive oil is cloudy. Congratulations, you just stumbled into a marital negotiation disguised as pantry critique. Music-shaped seduction tactics. A troubadour singing beneath a window wasn't just serenading. He was calibrating reverb. Too loud, and Daddy's men-at-arms would adjust his tempo with a pike. Too soft, and the lady might miss half the metaphors. Achieving perfect volume to flirt. Ratio became an art taught in Provence alongside verb conjugations. Gossip, however, remained undefeated. Chambermaids swapped sonic intel like traders haggling silk price. The rhythmic squeak pattern of a rope-strung bed. It could map the counts. Enthusiasm index. The muffled giggle echoing down the garderobe shaft. Evidence the Baroness's Spanish tutor overstayed his grammar lesson. Castles coursed with acoustic telemetry centuries before sonar, not to forget ecclesiastic soundproofing. Monasteries enforced. Greater silence after Compline, yet monks still invented low-throttle chant known as Nocturnes Humilis. Imagine Gregorian chant dialed to a similar, the drones mass snoring, but also allowed Brother Marcus to exchange whispered debates on Aristotelian logic without Abbot noticing. Spiritual white noise, monastery edition. Medical texts even weighed. And on bedroom decibels. The school of Salerno warned that shrill sounds during conception produced anxious babies, blame Mercury's influence. Midwives advised new mothers to hum modal scales in Dorian to lull colicky infants. Science, maybe. Placebo? Definitely tuneful. We must mention the strategic cough. Couples perfected throat-clearing bursts to camouflage compromising thuds. Recipe. Inhale sharply, throw cough on same beat as headboard impact, exhale innocently. Veteran lovers added foot shuffles or strategically dropped shoes for percussive flair. Some turned these moves into dance practice. Medieval multitasking at its finest. Let's eavesdrop on the peasant cottage. Thatch muffles rainfall but amplifies speech. Grandmother snores by hearth while young spouses conduct whispered negotiations. 3 feet away, hearts racing every time firewood cracks. Privacy becomes a dare. They invent lullaby games for the baby that double as code for shift to the right straw bale. Necessity writes the sweetest songs sound had legal weight too. A divorce petition from 1428 cites noises unbecoming. To marital decency translation. The husband's nightly ballad resembled a she-goat in labor, disturbing neighbors. The court recommended he switch to softer instruments or relocate to the barn. Music critics can be cruel, especially when armed with parchment and seals. The architecture tried to help. Spiral staircases reduced echo by design, curving vibrations into dead angles. Arras-lit windows vented smells and stray syllables. Some masons hid resonating jars inside walls terracotta Helmholtz resonators meant to brighten. Chapel acoustics, but inadvertently broadcast gossip like medieval megaphones when someone leaned too close. Pro tip from a 15th century housekeeping scroll. Scatter bundles of fresh hops around bedposts. Their spongy blossoms absorb sound and lull with a hint of ale. Downside, mice nibble hops, then stagger around drunk, squeaking louder than original problem. Medieval life always invoiced a twist. Musicians themselves courted scandal. Minstrels were walking Spotify playlists, but also walking tabloid apps. They sang for coins, then traded secrets for bigger tips. Some noblewomen paid double to have compliments set to melody. Rivals paid triple to make those compliments minor key. One bard penned a ballad so suggestive it was banned citywide, instantly making it the most requested encore dot, turning down the torchlight now. A single lute chord suspends in rafters. 2 lovers lie still, listening to the note fade until silence. Lands feather soft on both lips. They know the castle Chatelaine is 2 corridors away complaining about chimney smoke. This is their brief acoustic blind spot. Soft words travel no farther than each other's collarbones. Tomorrow, rumors will swirl that tonight, time itself lowers the volume. Before we drift off, a cautionary folktale. In Tuscany, they say a ghost named La Sasharina haunts echoing halls, recording every whispered vow on invisible parchment. Break your promise, and she recites it at full volume during Christmas Mass. Moral: if you can't trust stone walls, definitely don't trust supernatural stenographers. Let the final sound be the snuff of a candle. The wick sighs, darkness closes, and heartbeat returns to center stage. Should slumber claim you mid-verse, may your dreams be scored in soft modal harmonies, immune to barking hounds and clattering dice. But miss episode 6, and the castle mason might install a resonating jar. Beneath your bed, you'll hear every flea sneeze till dawn. Sweet silence. For now. Episode 6, courtly codes freeze right there. Don't move a muscle, especially the eyebrow. In a medieval court, a single eyebrow arch could launch rumors, marriages, or the occasional small war. Tonight we slip between the hems of courtly etiquette to discover how lovers traded secret GPS coordinates to each other's hearts, using nothing but ribbons, rings, and the world's most passive-aggressive embroidery. Picture the great hall at supper, 50 elbows, 20 even questionable, stews, and a density of watchful eyes rivaling any modern comment section. Direct flirting, suicidal. So nobles invented an encrypted language of gestures. A lady touching the corner of her veil meant meet me by the chapel door. Fingertips on a wine goblet signaled danger, parental chaperone approaching. Entire romances unfolded in semaphore made from cutlery. The real stars, however, were love knots. Think of them as medieval Bluetooth, two tokens bound by identical twists of silk. She wore hers on a girdle. He tucked his beneath armor. Knot types mattered. A square knot whispered fidelity. A reef knot hinted shared adventure, anything too. Elaborate screamed, bored artisan, proceed with caution. Some couples dipped knots in fragrant oils, so waft of rosemary confirmed authenticity. Primitive but poetic two-factor authentication dot fans. The medieval handheld variety fluttered like pop-up captions. One slow wave left to right said, "Someone's." Listening, a rapid open-close signaled scandalous enthusiasm. Rumor claims a duchess perfected a triple flick, meaning, "Your poetry needs work, but visit my solar after vespers." Courtiers began carrying notepads just to decode breezes indoors. Window seat rendezvous were the era's coffee date. Deep embrasures offered a cushion, a draft, and relative invisibility. Lovers sat opposite, knees almost touching but socially miles apart, whispering through the lattice. If a guard approached, conversation pivoted to psalms and record time speed Bible quoting became foreplay. The stained glass above painted their faces sanguine and violet. Romance literally got filtered. Let's decode the wardrobe. Colors acted as emotional status updates. Wearing green in spring hinted at fresh love. Black velvet with seed pearls broadcast mourning or strategic unavailability. Yellow gloves implied jealousy, while a blue livery sash meant loyalty so steadfast it bordered on clingy. Some nobles layered signals, causing chronic migraines among heralds obliged to track palette drama. Handkerchiefs were Hollywood billboards before Hollywood existed. Dropping one could express anything from disdain to undying devotion, depending on spin trajectory. A soft loft to the left invited pursuit. A harsh plummet straight down declared, "Return my goat or suffer consequences." Tailors reinforced corners because heartbreak can be rough on stitching. Accessory encryption didn't stop with cloth. Rings hid swivel bezels revealing miniatures of lovers' eyes, the Instagram close-up of its day. Bracelets carried verses. In microscript, tilt wrist toward candle, read line 3, meet at herb garden. One ambitious clerk etched an entire rendezvous map on a locket hardly bigger than a walnut. Tragically, the font was so tiny both parties arrived at different herb gardens, and the affair wilted like unwatered parsley. Language played along. Courts birthed slang thicker than tourney dust. Addressing someone as "Sweet Rosemary" indicated you'd shared at least one conspiratorial glance. Calling a rival stiff goosequill accused them of tattling. The best insults folded compliments. Tight enough to pass the censor, "Your virtue dazzles like polished armor" really meant, "Stop pretending." We heard everything. Monastic scribes, sworn to celibacy, nonetheless produce etiquette glossaries for these codes ostensibly, to warn novices, actually providing cheat sheets. One illuminated page shows a lady touching her throat, desire, while a monk in the border scribbles nota bene. Few novices resisted flipping back to that illustration during dull homeways.now. Watch the chessboard. Moves mirrored courtship. Rituals, offering a night trade equaled inviting a dance. Pinning the queen echoed cornering someone beneath mistletoe. Couples flirt-trode across checkered battlefields until bishops intervened, banning mixed-sex chess after sunset. Predictably, courier demand for travel chess sets crippled the next week. Falconry delivered Ariel messaging. If a gentleman let his hawk land on a lady's glove uninvited, scandal hatched faster than the hawk's lunch. Accepting the bird meant, "I trust you with sharp objects." Refusing wrist talons but protected reputations. One duchess kept a decoy glove stuffed with bacon to appease unwanted avian suitors. The hawks adored her. Suitors less so. Maps of court gardens became treasure. Puzzles. Lovers memorized hedge mazes, counting steps from Rose Arbor to Sundial to a bench out of Lantern Range. If caught wandering wrong quadrant, they pretended botanical interest. Just checking on the marjoram, my lord. Botanists still wonder why medieval marjoram beds are so well trampled. Cipher wheels eventually upgraded the flirt arsenal. Simple substitution ciphers traveled on ribbons, threaded through buckles rotate 3 letters forward, and Rose became URVH. Meaningless to interceptors, but crystal to the pair who set the offset. One metalworker crafted twin girdle, clasps engraved with cipher alphabets. Align your clasp to mine, message revealed. Alas, gusty wind spun the wheel mid-embrace, producing gibberish that historians later misread as astrological commentary. Even dancing turned covert. And the best dance? A syncopated heel tap against the floorboards might replace entire sonnets. Ladies practiced floor Morse while appearing delicately aloof. Men responded by adjusting hat feathers. Angle left for yes. Right for later, straight up from my aunt is watching. Feather suppliers reported inexplicable spikes. And asymmetrical plumes. Finally, the ultimate code. Silence itself. The mutual pause after a feast, when minstrels retune and servants clear trenchers, became prime confession hour. 2 people lock eyes, say absolutely nothing, and the hall fills with more meaning than any troubadour could sing. If eyes slide away too soon, hearts cool. Hold 1 beat longer, an entire lifetime's rearranged. Close your own eyes now. Feel the phantom tug of a silk knot at your wrist. Hear the hush of a fan flick somewhere beyond candle range. Imagine a faint scent of rosemary drifting overhead. Codes may change with centuries, but the thrill of hidden messages stays evergreen. Drift asleep decoding half-remembered glances, but beware. Skip episode 7 and those cipher wheels might spin nightmares, translating dreams into embarrassing gossip at breakfast. Rest cunningly. Episode 7, Potions and Filter Follies, Lean and Don't Worry. The draft from that cauldron is only mildly hallucinogenic. Tonight we uncork stoppered bottles and unlatch spice chests to sample the medieval cocktail menu of desire. From saffron-laced honey to powdered unicorn theories, we'll sip our way through the science, superstition, and salesmanship behind history's most ambitious. APHRODICACS. Imagine a marketplace humming like an overcaffeinated beehive. Amid fishmongers, wool merchants, and someone suspiciously pushing pewtered relics, stands a spice seller brandishing a tiny vial. He promises the contents, crushed long pepper, cinnamon bark, and just a whisker of musk, will turn any reluctant heart into a banquet for 2. The vial costs more than a sheep. He sells out before noon. Medieval economics, demand driven chiefly by optimism. Let's begin with the pantry staples. Honey was liquid gold, not just for sweetness, but as an all-purpose. Adhesive for herbs, resins, and hope. A typical love syrup might melt honey with saffron for color, ginger for heat, and a discreet dash of ground almonds for texture. Physicians claimed such drafts strengthened the vital spirits. Modern translators, sugar rush plus. Warming spices equals confidence ancient energy drink, but sexier branding. Ginger itself earned a saucy reputation. One Paris physician wrote that ginger stirreth up bodily lust more than any other root. No wonder monastery kitchens locked their spice jars after Compline. Meanwhile, coriander seeds found their way into marriage goblets. The seeds resemble tiny hearts if you squint hard enough, or if you've already drunk the goblet content, stop now for the heavyweight contender. Spanish fly actually blister. Beetles dried and powdered into emerald green dust. Apothecaries swore a sprinkle in wine. Inflamed passion. In truth, it inflamed everything. Bladder, kidneys, and mortality statistics. The only winners were beetle hunters and undertakers. Yet demand persisted because nothing sells like risk packaged as romance. Move over, Beatles welcome mandrake. This anthropomorphic root, when pulled from soil, supposedly screamed loud enough to fell oxen. Harvesters employed black dogs to yank it free, then buried the dogs as collateral damage. Owning mandrakes said either I'm wealthy or I'm fascinatingly reckless. Soaked in wine overnight, slices were slipped beneath pillows to spark midnight boldness. Whether desire bloomed or nightmare sprouted is still 5050. Astrology stirred the pot too. Medieval pharmacopoeias matched ingredients to planets. Mars rolled plants, nettle, pepper for ardor, Venus rolled, rose, violet for gentleness. Apothecaries timed distillations by moon phase, claiming a waxing crescent amplified allure. Some couples scheduled date night strictly between moonrise and moonset of the fifth day romantic, that scheduling nightmare for tavern reservations, a brisk detour into kitchen alchemy, breadcrumb pills soaked in wine, rolled in powdered fennel, then baked until crisp. Eaten 3 at dawn, 2 at dusk. They allegedly stoked affection like bellows on coal. One baker sold them in heart shapes. Clerics protested the frivolity, then quietly purchased bulk orders labeled communion experiments. The church weighed in, of course. Synod records bristle with condemnations of filters of diabolical persuasion. Yet penitential tariffs rarely matched the popularity curve. Confessors prescribed lighter penance if the filter included at least one psalm during brewing spiritual seasoning. Thus, love potions acquired auditory garnishes, murmured scripture, half-remembered hymns, or, in one Italian case, a lullaby about olives. Let's not overlook the placebo power of a hymn exotic. Ingredients: ape's gallbladders, powdered pearls, pulverized stag antler, all turned up in court recipes. Scarcity equaled mystique. Mystique equaled potency. Buyers seldom asked how one harvests an ape's gallbladder in northern Europe, preferring to imagine intrepid merchants rather than opportunistic butchers with good stories. Science tried its part. The school of Salerno wrote that spices warm the humors, while cold lettuce dampens vigor. Cue lettuce shortages before big feast days. One physician penned an entire treatise on balancing cinnamon with vinegar to avoid overheating. The spleen. Couples read the tract, highlighted cinnamon passages, ignored the spleen footnotes. Even animals got involved. Popular superstition claimed eating a rooster's comb stew before dawn imbued you with roosterly stamina. Market stalls. Selling combs sold out days before weddings, leaving headless roosters strutting around confused. Poultry unions have yet to forget. But what about the antidotes? Every potent brew demanded a failsafe. Scholars recommended pomegranate juice or cold bath immersion to quench excessive ardor. Cold bath also quenched consciousness effectively, resetting the system. Medieval CTRL plus out plus delete dot. We must address the legal angle. Certain cities required apothecaries to register filter sales. Records from Bruges show coded entries. Tonic for chill limbs sold on Valentine's Eve. Spice blend for winter marriages in bulk come November. Municipal fees funded new city walls proof love literally built fortresses. Now travel to the countryside cottage. Granny Agnes brews a gentler tonic, nettle tops, meadow honey, and a single rosehip. She calls it courage tea, serves it to shy youths, swears by its bloom-rousing effect. Modern analysis reveals vitamin C, iron, and sugar ingredients that indeed make cheeks rosy and hearts adventurous. Sometimes the best magic is nutrition, wearing a floral hat before we cork our bottles, a cautionary folktale. In Bohemia, they still speak of Mira, who mixed a filter so strong her beloved followed her into the woods nightly howling poetry. One night she doubled the dose. He proposed in flawless verse, but forgot it by sunrise, leaving only paw prints and confusion. Lesson: Always measure your metaphors and your potions dot as embers dim. Set your concoctions aside. Desire, like yeast, needs warmth and patience. Sleep may find you tasting phantom ginger on your tongue. Fear not, it's memory's spoonful. Skip episode 8 and your dreams might substitute lettuce for cinnamon tasteless, dreary, a romance. Best left in the compost. Until then, may your cupboards rattle with harmless hope and your ladles steer clear of beetles. Episode 8, between cradle and cross, breathe quietly and tiptoe past the chapel door. A midwife is muttering Latin over a steaming cauldron, and you're about to learn why love in the Middle Ages always carried a footnote about lineage, law, and the terrifying possibility of twins. Tonight we take a candle to the shadowy corridor between feasting and feeding, passion and postpartum. Welcome to the negotiation table where cradle meets cross, where contraception folklore jostles with birthing realities. And everybody hopes the saints are in a good mood. First things first, family planning, medieval edition, forget latex. Finklace. Noble women sewed small jade beads into girdles, believing their cool kiss against the belly discouraged conception. Peasant wives tied red wool around left ankles on market day, timing knots to lunar phases. The logic? If the moon can pull oceans, surely it can match embryos. Science says otherwise. Optimism needed no peer review. Physicians offered pharmaceutical options. Pennyroyal tea so bitter it curled the tongue. Rue seeds wrapped in wax pellets. And the ever-popular Quicksilver smoothie. Spoiler, Mercury shakes hands with organ. Failure. One Italian surgeon warned that pennyroyal should be brewed exactly as long as it takes to recite Psalm 51, no more, no less. Any longer and you risk not only barrenness but excommunication, holy herbal oversight. For men, advice was equally rigorous. Avoid hot baths, overripe figs, and excessive poetry. One monk declared that a sonnet recited too near bedtime stirs the loins past safe limits. Naturally, bards became the era's contraceptive scapegoats, poor souls serenading under windows, only to be blamed for every unexpected christening. Inevitably, the church weighed in. Official position, procreation good, barriers bad, heavens. Reputation on the line. But even confessors grudgingly acknowledged economic realities. A small holding can feed only so many mouths. Thus arose theological somersaults. One penitential allowed abstinence on feast days for greater contemplation, coincidentally, 180 days of the calendar. Devout farmers became very contemplative. When prevention failed, attention shifted to safe delivery. Midwives were first responders, part priestess, part plumber, armed with birthing girdles, inked with prayers, and occasionally diagrams. These parchment belts rolled chanting over bellies promised shorter labors. Modern medics may raise eyebrows. Medieval mothers clutched them like seat belts on a jolting cart. Let's unpack the birth room. Starter kit. Olive oil lamp for warmth and omen-reading shadows. Goose feather quills to stroke the mother's palms and distract from contractions. A knife tucked under the straw mattress to cut the pain. Superstition overlapped with situational MacGyvering. The knife doubled as emergency umbilical scissors if things escalated. Pain relief options were creative. Ale warmed with cloves, poppy seed poultices on temples, or a draught of mandrake wine metered out until the mother's singing slurred just shy of unconsciousness. One Welsh recipe recommends humming a lullaby toward the womb so the babe exits. Chasing the melody parenting begins before birth. Dangers stalk the threshold. Postpartum fever, breech births, hemorrhage all common specters. Enter the churching ceremony. 40 days after delivery, mothers process to the altar for purification, blessed salt clinging to tongue. For many women, it marked survival. For others, absence told its own story. Parish registers note pews. as poignantly as tombstones. Contraception myths persisted despite tragedies. Some swore foxglove tea taken when the cock crows thrice rendered wombs inhospitable, not realizing digitalis also rendered hearts unreliable. Others believed sleeping with a wooden staff between thighs diverted seed, the medieval equivalent of sleeping with headphones to avoid conversation. Trial and error left behind a tapestry of folk remedies, most ineffective, some lethal, all born of agency clawing through doctrine. Male medical authors occasionally peeked in. Tratula texts advised wrapping the mother's abdomen with wool soaked in rosewater while heating bricks near her feet to draw downward forces. Barber surgeons offered forceps resembling smithy tongs. Midwives rolled eyes, preferring hands they trusted over iron invented by men who fainted at first blood. Breastfeeding carried its own cosmic scorecard. Colostrum, dismissed by some as witch's butter, got thrown out until midwives demonstrated. Healthier infants nursed immediately. Medicinal ales spiked with fennel promised plentiful milk. One recipe included breadcrumbs to thicken broth. Babies reportedly belched like tavern patrons, an early lesson in supply chain adulteration. Postnatal birth control reverted to abstinence suggestions, share bed with infant, instant romance. Killer were chastity belts, exaggerated in myth, but a few did exist more padlocked than lingerie. Or take pilgrimage for a year, effectively long-distance relationship before postcards. Spouses wrote letters delivered by monks who discreetly skipped suggestive paragraphs. Legalities lurked. Heirship laws obsessed about legitimate issue. Nobles counted moons between wedding and birth. Too few moons invited whispers and sometimes annulments. Midwives kept private ledgers, not just of births, but of who arrived prematurely, suspiciously robust. Those notes could buy silence or spark blackmail. Either way, they stayed hidden like relics. As candle stubs fade, remember, every medieval love story balanced on knife edge. Calculations, souls saved, fields inherited, bodies endured. Sleep gently cradled in that knowledge. But miss episode 9 and you'll wake to political matrimony negotiations without a guidebook, worse than foxglove tea without instructions. Slumber wisely. Episode 9, beds as battlefields. Pause your stride at the castle gatehouse and feel the tremor under your boots. That is not an earthquake. It is the collective sigh of kingdoms signing nuptial treaties. In the Middle Ages, nothing detonated. Like a wedding night, except maybe the war it was meant to prevent. Tonight we pull back embroidered curtains to watch thrones negotiate beneath Goosetown, where pleasure took notes from politics and dawn smelled faintly of parchment and compromise. Imagine a great hall draped with heraldic banners, each more aggressively colorful than the last visual mating calls for dynasties. On the dais sit two adolescents who met yesterday and will rule tomorrow. Between them shivers a legal scroll thick as a lance, ink still moist. Everyone present pretends the bride's blushes result from passion, not the fact that her dowry list includes 3 border castles, 40 mules, and a clause about mutual defense against hypothetical future invasions by her own cousins. Were peace treaties sewn with silk thread. If a groom's cuff matched the bride's sleeve color, ambassadors read it as a signal that tariffs might drop. If the bride's veil showed even 1 silver star more than protocol allowed, a neighboring duke saw provocation and sharpened quills for angry letters. Fashion was foreign policy with better tailoring, but politeness ended at the bedchamber. Threshold. Observe the bedding ceremony, that rowdy parade where witnesses marched the new couple to bed, cheering with the volume of a tournament crowd. The point was to confirm consummation not by watching, thankfully, but by hovering outside until giggles or groans assured legitimacy. One chronicler described a choir humming madrigals so loudly it drowned any awkward silences inside. Medieval. Mood music, half hymn, half surveillance. Dowries functioned like ransom payments offered pre-capture. Land. coin, exotic lapdogs. Everything had strategic weight. One princess arrived with a library, each manuscript gilded with her coat of arms. Her husband, illiterate but pragmatic, traded half the books for mercenaries and hired a tutor with the profits. Literacy rate up, marital affection tending. Conversely, mourning gifts flowed from groom to bride after the wedding night, ideally equal in sparkle to her dowry's price tag. Think of it as a Yelp review paid in jewels. If she received only a silver brooch, rumor. Judge the night underwhelming. A ruby necklace implied fireworks. Court jewelers doubled as gossip columnists, tallying gemstones like match statistics that morning after negotiations resumed. Breakfast platters hid subclauses. If the bride received sweetmeats, her homeland's sugar monopoly might be in play. Salt herring hinted at Baltic trade routes. One clever queen served her new in-laws a pie stuffed with live doves that burst. Skyward revealing scrolls tied to their feet, each scroll a secret amendment. Ratified by pastry, annulment hovered like a vulture. Failure to produce heirs gave both parties legal exits, though not without collateral damage. Doctors examined bedsheets for ambiguous stains. Priests questioned chambermaids. Astrologers rechecked natal charts. One unlucky pair blamed Venus retrograde for childlessness. The bishop, unfamiliar with astrology but fond of scapegoats, excommunicated Venus for a fortnight. Individual feelings sometimes staged coups. Eleanor of Aquitaine famously marched a crusade because politics bored her and singing knights looked. Interesting. When alliances cracked, so did Beckpost Henry II allegedly had carpenter's bills longer than royal writs. Splinters became metaphors for national fractures. Let's peek at the common folk. Village marriages still involved property, albeit smaller parcels, 2 goats, a plot of turnips, occasional homemade cheese with unilateral grazing rights. Yet, even here, the bed remained a treaty table. A spilled ale cup during bedding could void agreed piglet exchanges, leading to court cases where pig squeals served as audio evidence. Rural law is resourceful, back to palaces. Some couples drafted postnuptial treatises before breakfast. She promised diplomatic smiles at tournaments. He swore to consult her on tax hikes. Quills twirled, hearts simmered, compromise took root. Suddenly, the bed was no longer battlefield but conference room with pillows. Yet, for all strategy, unpredictability reigned. A prince allergic to cats married a duchess obsessed with Persian. Felines, sneezes fueled tabloid songs. Another alliance collapsed when a forest fire burned the dowry forest's midwifery acts of God, drafted into political cartoons. Whenever treaties frayed, courtiers deployed subtle bedroom fixes. Extra goose down, gifted to restless spouses, lavender pillows to moody princes, a strategically placed minstrel serenade at dusk. Court lifestyle coaches existed centuries before spa packages advising rulers to spoon for state security. Legal documents even specified spooning positions. Let them lie in sweet concord, shoulder to breast, lest discord arise. Lawyers today could learn from such poetic statutes. Breach of cuddle carried fines payable in tapestries. The guilty party endured shaming verses performed at dinner. Failure of intimacy sometimes sparked literal wars. Countess Matilda refused conjugal duties. Her husband claimed casus belli and invaded her county to repossess marital rights. She barricaded with archers, proving you can weaponize cold feet. Peace returned only when the Pope mediated a blanket truce. Yes, they negotiated under an actual blanket embroidered with papal arms. Meanwhile, morning after politics shaped international cuisine. Anxious cooks invented croissants, blini, and marzipan swans to symbolize unions of East and West, North and South. If breakfast fusion succeeded, scribes noted auspicious omens. If not, someone ordered extra garrisons at the border. remember. This, in medieval Europe, love letters were treaties, wedding beds, campaign tents, and satisfied snores the sweetest national anthem. Drift off hearing parchment crackle beside velvet. But skip episode 10 and you may wake to rumors about secret desires you can't even name. Better tune in before the tapestries start whispering. Episode 10, Veiled Desires, hold the torch low and mind that creaky floorboard. Some secrets prefer half shadow and velvet footfall. Tonight we tread the hushed corridors where friendship blurred to intimacy, where tunics shifted just enough to confuse onlookers, and where scribes dipped pens in longing's invisible ink. Welcome to the side chambers of medieval love stories, the ones the official chronicles footnoted, then quietly skipped that start in a monastery cloister at dusk. Two novices share a psalter, heads bowed so close the candle's halo wraps them as one silhouette. The Latin text praises divine charity. The marginalia, added later, shows twin roses intertwined. A librarian, sensing trouble, coughs politely. The novices separate like book covers snapping shut, yet the echo of shared breath hangs in the alcove longer than any hymn note outside. Troubadours craft verses celebrating amicia perfecta, perfect friendship between knights. The refrain insists steel meets steel, heart meets heart. Court audiences nod, missing the subtext clang louder than armor. Some knights traded girdle ribbons, others swapped sword hilts, each gesture a love letter disguised as chivalry. Requirement. A chronicler wryly observes that certain squires polished the wrong armor if you judged by heraldic symbols alone. Meanwhile, noble women found privacy behind embroidery hoops. A lady might stitch her maidservant's initials into the hem of a chemise, right where only intimate laundering revealed it. If someone noticed, she blamed artistic flourish. When in records, more confessions than parchment ever dared. Theologians, of course, had opinions. Thomas Aquinas warned that disordered affection threatened social fabric. Yet the same theologians admired stories of David and Jonathan, so devoted they exchanged cloaks. Scholars spent decades debating where affection ended and scandal began, while real humans quietly ignored footnotes and followed heart logistics. Cross-dressing provided mobile camouflage. Fairs welcomed mummers in masks. Behind painted smiles, some lovers grasped freedoms a daylight name denied. City sumptuary laws forbade men in gowns and women in hose, unless it was carnival. Then everything reversed at once, and local sheriffs developed festive migraines. 1 year in Venice, the Doge's guard spent 6 hours chasing a silver-haired lady who turned out to be a poet-gathering material, and perhaps phone numbers avant la lettre, pilgrimage routes offered anonymity by the mile. 2 women donned traveler cloaks to journey from Bruges to Santiago, registered at inns as cousins. Pilgrim accounts note their identical scallop shells, their habit of sharing a single bunk for warmth, and their exceptional singing of lullabies in 2 parts. The margin comment suspectum appears once. The next page is torn out, perhaps by a romantic or an archivist with a sense of mercy dot in royal courts. Jesters became both shield and whistleblower. One quipped that the Queen's favorite lady-in-waiting carried the keys to Her Majesty's private wardrobe. The court roared. The king laughed last, perhaps slow on the uptake. Wordplay acted as rumor's Trojan horse, delivering truth wrapped in punchline tissue. Monastic same-sex affection posed a theological riddle. Vows of chastity didn't specify direction of desire, only its expression. Chapter house rules forbade 2 monks sharing a blanket, lest the devil make a rope of it. Yet record after record shows brethren requesting joint burial plots, carved tomb effigies with hands clasped. Stone can be bold where flesh must whisper. Women's convents birthed. Passionate correspondence. Abbess Heloise's letters to Abelard overshadowed an entire century, but less famous nuns wrote to each other about spiritual sisterhoods, So fiery, the church coined the term. Particular friendship to police them, mother superiors, responded by rearranging dormitories, inadvertently creating fresh adjacency charts for new crushes. Legal persecution varied wildly. Some regions punished sodomy with fire. Others preferred hefty fines payable to local lords' wine cellars. Records reveal creative plea bargains. A baker accused of indecent acts funded a new church bell instead of facing the stake. The bell rang for centuries, every toll a reminder that mercy can echo if bribed properly. Gender nonconformity often intersected with vocational loopholes. Female physicians adopted male garb to access universities. Some never switched back. Chronicles mention Brother Johannes the Healer, only posthumously identified by skeleton analysis as female. Medieval's markers ticked the other box long. Before bureaucrats offered one, literature provided covert manuals. The Romance of the Rose flirts with fluid allegories. Arabic love poetry drifting into Spain described gazelled youths, with gender deliberately smudged. Translators scribbled disclaimers, interpret with caution. Readers nodded, closed doors, and interpreted with enthusiasm. Clergy sometimes advocated compassion over condemnation. In 1490, Prior Anselm of Liege wrote that sins of love deserved balm, not blade, for all love aches alike. His letter survived hidden inside a psalter binding, discovered in 1902 when a collector dismantled the spine. Time itself became accomplice in preserving gentle heresies.